Well, thanks, Peter, for the introduction, and thanks, CGS, and thanks, RUSI, for inviting me. It's a great honour and a pleasure to be here talking to you. The question that is the premise of this conference is, how will land forces achieve competitive advantage beyond 2025? And interestingly, the title of the conference gives an answer to that question, namely, by multidimensional manoeuvre, and that is the aspiration of Western and perhaps global forces. And yesterday we heard an enormous amount of interesting material in terms of the strategic, organizational, and especially, as Peter says, the technological dimension of multidimensional operations of manoeuvre in the 21st century. And of course, as Peter has also said, in this panel and the next panel, what we're now interested in is the question of human factors, the indispensable element of the brutal realm of warfare. And I think in this panel and the next panel, we will be focusing on three critical human factors, namely the intellectual, the physical, and the moral. And I mean moral in the French sense to mean both morale, determination to fight, and also the morality of fighting, the ethics. And I think what my panelists and the following panelists will talk to is these three critical themes. Now, I'm not going to talk generally. I want to talk about one human dimension of contemporary and indeed historic warfare, namely command. Why do I want to talk about command? Because it is an enduring fact of warfare. It is an indispensable capability in terms of warfare. And of course, it's an utterly human capacity. It requires intellectual understanding, imagination, and of course, moral dimensions, emotional intelligence. So it's a human capacity which is actually inalienable. We're never going to allow a machine to take responsibility for the act of killing other human beings. The commander will always take that responsibility. So the command is a human capacity. And it's to command I want to speak. What is command? Well, to this audience, we all know. It is decision-making, the authority to make decisions. Why is command so important to the armed forces? Because command solves an organizational problem. It is the solution to an organizational problem. How do you coordinate complex, large organizations? You invest decision-making authority in a single person who is able to provide unity of intent and effort. So command is a decision-making capacity. But the minute we recognize that, we have a problem in the 21st century, and the problem was articulated very well yesterday. The operations have become so complicated, multidimensional maneuver has become so complicated, it's multidimensional, that actually the capacity to generate unity of effort is highly challenged and difficult. Indeed, I might say that there's a conundrum of command in the 21st century. You absolutely need command in the 21st century to pull together this extraordinary multidimensional system, but actually delivering coherent decision-making as the cycles proliferate, as the kinds of decision diversify and multiply, is an increasing challenge to commanders. So the question I want to ask in the next 10 minutes is this, or try to answer in the next 10 minutes is this. How do we enhance the human capacity of commanders to be able to deliver and orchestrate multidimensional maneuver? Now, I would argue there are three possible options. They're not mutually exclusive, but options. First is artificial intelligence. There is no question artificial intelligence has and will be important to command. But I've got to say, as a sociologist, I'm pretty skeptical about a lot of what I heard yesterday. Artificial intelligence, on my understanding, is a set of pre-programmed algorithms which are brilliant over a limited sphere, but they are limited. So that I do not see a realm in which artificial intelligence will replace the general as the decision maker in a theatre of operations. And indeed, if we look at digital communications, I would predict that artificial intelligence will simply complicate the operational environment. Digital communications allowed commanders to stretch operations, to coordinate with diverse agencies and diverse forces. The result, decision-making became highly problematic. I would predict a very similar process with artificial intelligence. So then we move to now into the domain of human capacities. And we look to the traditional capacity of the commander's intuition. Now, if we are by commander's intuition, we are talking to the factors of experience, of recognition, pattern decision-making. There is clear evidence that intuition is a potentially important part of command and will remain so. However, even UK doctrine notes that actually intuition could be a dangerous thing for a commander. It actually warns against using prior experience and mental models to make future decisions. So clearly, individual brilliance, individual sort of Napoleonic genius, we need to be well beyond this, and we need to be well beyond this, especially in a multi-dimensional environment where commanders are running very complicated systems of operations, not simply simple formations. So then we reach the third possible option, the option of mission command. And in a military audience, it's unnecessary to say that this is the one which Western forces have repeatedly and recurrently affirmed as the central human method, the central social method, the central practical method of responding to the complexity of operations. We devolve and decentralize decision-making in order to accelerate and improve decision cycles. And as such, I think it has been a proven method. However, there are two presumptions in the concept of mission command as it is currently often discussed and articulated in doctrine, and it is this. Firstly, mission command, as we would practice it in the 21st century, has a long and pristine history. It's invented by von Moltke in the late 19th century, and it's perfected by the Wehrmacht 1939 to 1945. And we are the mere sort of unworthies to the great German generals of the 1940s. This may be historically appropriate. I have skepticism about it. The second point related to the historical point is this, that it is a deregulated, individualist system. That what mission command involves is the attribution of freedom to subordinate commanders to act, note, on their own initiative. See point 2, that it returns us to the problems of point 2. I put it to you, a mission command system in the 21st century is not as history would have it. It is not as the mythology of the von Moltkean, Wehrmachtian systems would have it. Actually, as practiced, mission command has evolved into a different professional skill. It still operates, but it is emerged into a quite different professional skill, a collective professional skill. And if we look at mission command as it is practiced to say, it is not about the deregulation, the laissez-faire decoupling of a military system. On the contrary, it is about the integration, the tight integration of a complex military system across assets, across services, across echelons. How do we do that? We do that by forming highly integrated command teams. The commander is absolutely essential, but the commander is surrounded and builds around themselves a command team of deputies and subordinates who are able to align and synchronize complex decision makings in a specific time and space. Let me give you just a very quick example of this. Take about 15 years to James Mattis and the march up 1st Marine Division. James Mattis is an interesting case. He sees himself or saw himself as a traditional divisional commander. What I would put it to you is that actually he represented a quite radical shift, a quite radical implementation of a 21st century of mission command. What did he do to mount the march up, to mount the 1st Marine Division's advance from Kuwait all the way to Baghdad? He did 3 things. Firstly, he created a team of commands, a fraternity of commanders around him, where he explicitly identified the commanders in the 1st Marine Division as a special elite status group. Why a special elite status group? Because they had responsibility for their Marines, for the life and death of their Marines, and ordering their life, those Marines, to potentially kill, and in fact to kill Iraqi soldiers. So what we see is the formation of a very tight team, which he was no longer he was the superior in it, but no longer the hierarchical general, but the captain of a football team. He then mentored his subordinates into how to make decisions and what kind of decisions could be made. Finally, before the operation, through a series of rehearsal of concept drills, he disciplined the entire divisional commanders, including himself, into anticipating, envisaging, and refining what decisions they would make at each echelon level in the light of unexpected circumstances, and where their responsibilities and delegations actually lay. So what we see with matters is not a traditional deregulated, loosely coupled system, the kinds of system that von Moltke or the Wehrmacht generals potentially run, but actually a highly professionalized command team synchronizing and aligning decisions across the levels. Let me bring to a conclusion. The commander is essential in the contemporary environment. There needs to be a single point of collective reference in the quantum system of multidimensional operations. That point of reference has to be a commander, a human being. But in order to actually manage and execute the mission, a commander today requires a tight, integrated professional command team around them, consisting of deputies, subordinates, staff, who are able to refine the mission definition and to manage the mission and its multiplication, its proliferation of decisions. So, what I suggest is this. When we think about command, we need to focus on the human dimension, and we need to focus on not the individual human dimension, but the collective social one. Last point. How is this relevant for the wider force? We need to focus on collective human dimensions all the way down to the fire team. A successful army in the 21st century will be one that consists of highly professionalized, integrated teams, from the tiny fire team going into a building to clear a building, right up to the divisional and corps levels. And I'll say one final thing, and I say this as a sociologist. Yesterday, the underlying philosophical presumption is that technology and the efforts we're trying to make are individualized. No. Humans are social animals. Our skills and powers lie in the collective, in the group. So if you want to make a powerful army, look to your groups, not to your individuals. Thanks very much.